Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. In today's video, we're going to be talking about good debt versus bad debt, and is there such a thing as good debt? My whole channel is obviously about helping you master your money and build your wealth and get you out of consumer debt. However, I am a believer that there is good debt, and I'll explain why in this video. Stay tuned. So I'm going to put a screenshot on the screen right here. Hopefully you can see the font and read it. Basically, this person commented on one of my videos talking about Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps, where I hinted that there is good debt and bad debt, and she disagreed with that, which is 100% fine. That's her opinion and she's entitled to that. However, I did want to turn this into a video because there are some people that agree with me and there's some people that disagree with me, and I kind of want to give the premise of the difference between good debt and bad debt. So her comment was basically saying, I kind of lost interest when you basically said that there's good debt and bad debt. Debt is debt and the borrower is slave to the lender. And that's 100% fine. That's her opinion. That's great. However, I responded with, there absolutely is good debt and bad debt. Leverage is a tool. When used properly and responsibly, it gets you to where you want to go faster. We'll agree to disagree. Thanks for watching. So if you notice the percentages on the bottom of that screenshot, you can see here that this was a poll that I ran on for my Instagram community of about 7,300 followers at this point. And you can see that about 400 to 500 people voted, and 87% agreed with me, 13% agreed with her, which is completely fine. However, for this video, I do want to establish my thoughts about good debt and bad debt and give you a few real examples from people who also responded to me in my direct messages. So let's start by defining good debt. So good debt is basically, in my eyes, something that helps increase your wealth over time. So this could be the purchase of, property, whether it's income producing or whether it could even be your own residence, which appreciates over time with value. Also, it's something that throws off value periodically. So whether this is a monthly rental property that may throw off some money every month, or an ATM business where you make money every month passively, I'm just giving you examples. So this is my definition: raises wealth over time or throws off some value. Now, if you want to talk about bad debt, it's basically the same, the exact opposite. So this is something that lowers your wealth over time. It does not increase your wealth, and it does not throw off value every month, okay? So this would be something like a consumer purchase. So say you buy an iPad, for example, and you spend $500, $600, $700 on the iPad. Well, that money's gone. That thing's not appreciating in value, and it's not throwing off any money. If you use debt to purchase an iPad, that would be bad debt. So let me get into examples of good debt and bad debt based on some of the comments that I got from my Instagram community. So here's another screenshot from a gentleman whose father owns a small business that he eventually took over. My father had this mindset: pay for everything in cash, save first, and no debt. Our family business desperately needed new equipment, but my dad refused to finance it and wanted to save for it first. When I took over, I bought all the equipment we needed and had about $25,000 a year in debt payments, which is known as debt service. And then that increased our revenue $250,000, which is basically a 10x return on investment. There's absolutely good debt and bad debt. My dad would still be saving for that equipment, but instead we were earning money off of it every day. Okay, so the first one is going to be small business loan. Okay, so there are a number of different benefits to using good debt of taking out, small business loan. So as mentioned in the Instagram story, this guy basically 10x'd his business's revenue off of that debt service. He's paying 25 grand, whether it's a year or a month, I'm not sure, he didn't clarify. However, he's receiving 250,000 because of that debt, okay? So the first one is, this could be used to scale a business, okay? The second example of the second benefit of a small business loan is that you would not give up equity in the company, okay? So instead of this gentleman having to give up equity, saying like, hey, I really need this debt to buy this new equipment, I'll give you 10% of my business. Well, every entrepreneur knows that giving up money in your business is probably not the best route to go, especially if it's something that you've nurtured from its infancy. So if you want to get a real life example, Shark Tank is that. people that can't get outside funding or raise money themselves go to Shark Tank and they say, hey, here's my product, dance like a monkey with the cymbals, will you invest in my company? And then Mark Cuban says, here's 1%. So basically, you're not giving up equity. Also, the interest on that loan is tax deductible. Okay, it's a business expense, you can write off taxes. And then also, finally, sometimes a small loan or even a revolving line of credit can help a business get through tough times. And also, if they have like a net 30 to where they invoice for something and the person that they sold it to has 30 days to pay them, well, the companies still have to come up with, the materials, the goods, the rent on their business, all that stuff, to where they need to cover those costs until they get paid from the person who they sold their services to. So that's a perfect example. So the second example I want to talk about, and I'll actually read this from another comment, is we're going to talk about student loans. So this gentleman right here says, another example is a nurse taking out loans to become a nurse practitioner, aka my wife. And this isn't my wife, but my wife is in this situation. Loans may be at $90,000 at most to make $100,000 a year in income, basically doubling their income, which is true. Every year once they're done. It's really just simple math. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about student loans. So in my personal opinion, student loans in this country, in the United States, are an absolute joke. I think it's going to be a big black eye on this country looking back 30, 40 years from now. The cost of higher education in the United States is an absolute joke compared to the rest of the world. However, this person is right. I would consider this maybe in the gray area of good debt. However, if you know that you can double your income by basically taking out X amount of dollars in student loans, it makes all the sense in the world. So my wife's further education, her master's degree for nurse practitioner, is going to cost basically $27,000 total, and her salary is essentially going to double. Now, if you take that over the course of a lifetime, the ROI on that is going to be exponentially higher than what the debt was. So we figured that she can essentially just pay this off immediately. We're actually cash flowing it, but if we weren't, for this example, she could basically pay this off after a year of becoming a full-time nurse practitioner. So very quickly with the student loans, many studies show that people with higher education, they have lower unemployment. The rates are much lower, employment, and they actually make more money over the course of their life. Okay, this is just common sense. Obviously, unless you're an entrepreneur, someone with a bachelor's degree is probably going to make more than someone with a high school diploma or no high school at all. That's obviously not the case, but the studies show that the Bureau of Labor Statistics clearly shows that. So it also depends on what you study. So you can't go to college to basically become underwater basket weaver or an arts major, okay? That's very foolish to do that. You can learn all that stuff at the library or on YouTube, to be quite honest. So if you're gonna go this route, you need to study something that's in the STEM fields. So basically science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are the degrees that have a high ROI or return on investment, okay? So the third example of good debt is pretty much the thing that's created the most millionaires throughout history, and that's real estate, okay? Income producing real estate, to be quite specific. So here's another example of, actually two examples. I agree that consumer debt is bad. Don't go buy an iPad on a credit card without a way to pay it off, but my net worth has literally 20x due to debt and leverage buying rental properties. Like you said, it's a tool. Makes me crazy how misinformed people are. And here's another one from a gentleman who's actually, his YouTube channel is blowing up, but I'm not going to say who it is. This person says, it blows my mind in the comments that I'm getting when people hear that I'm $1.65 million in debt on all my properties. At current occupancy, once we complete this rehab, it's going to be $50,000 a month in cash flow on $12,000 a month on debt service, okay? So again, debt is a tool. Remember that. It's just like a hammer. Would you rather take your forehead and try and nail in a nail, or your fist? No, you use a hammer to nail a nail. It's just a tool, you guys. So income producing real estate, I want to give an example of what we call cash on cash return. So cash on cash return is basically one of the biggest or the quickest metrics that you can see if a real estate investment is worth it or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pre-tax cash flow and we're going to divide it by the annual income that the property produces. So remember this, pre-tax cash flow divided by annual income. So we're going to take a property that effectively grosses $180,000 a year. Okay, this is what we bring in income, minus the operating expenses of, let's call it $70,000 a year. Okay, which brings us to $110,000. And then this investment to buy straight cash for the people that are anti-debt is $1 million. This is a $1 million commercial real estate property. So if you remember, you take the pre-tax income divided by the annual cash flow. This gives us a cash on cash return of 11%. Very easy. It's 110 divided by 1 million, okay? 11%. Now, let's use the same exact example, $1 million property, all effective costs are the same. Remember this, 11%. And we're actually going to finance this with the good debt that we're talking about. So, same net operating income, except that we're going to finance $800,000, okay? Because we're going to put 20% down. Our mortgage is $800,000. We're using $200,000 of our own money. And we're going to get the same exact formula here. So if you remember, the net income was $110,000 minus the debt service. So this loan, debt service is basically just the cost of your interest. So this loan at 8% right here, $800,000 at 8%, costs $64,000 a year. That's what we're doing. We're taking the cash flow from the property after the expenses of 110 minus the $64,000, that's the debt service, okay? You follow me, guys? And you basically get $46,000 divided by how much money do we have into this deal? $200,000. Because remember, we're using $800,000 of the bank's money. This comes out to be 23% cash on cash return, okay? We're doubling basically our effective cash on cash return. It's actually more than double. So do you see how that makes sense, you guys? This is what we would consider good debt, okay? Now, let's give some quick examples of bad debt, which I'm not even going to spend much time on because this is all pretty much common sense, you guys. So we obviously have credit card debt. Credit card debt is dumb. It's usually used for things that you can't afford in the first place. Sometimes they're used for emergencies. Sometimes they're used for stupid impulse spending, okay? And that typically comes from consumer debt. Consumer debt is the iPad example. This is the stuff that you make impulse purchases on and don't necessarily need, okay? And then finally, my favorite, which I've never had in my entire life, is a car loan. So typically when people talk about cars and car loans, they're talking about A to B transportation, getting them to and from work, et cetera, et cetera. However, if you take out a car loan, even if you can get a 0% loan, it's still bad debt, because think about our definition. It's not raising your wealth and it's not throwing off any money, okay? So here's wealth, money. All these fall into that definition. If it doesn't increase your wealth over time and it doesn't throw off some periodic income, it's not good debt, okay? So this video, you probably downvoted it just from reading the title or watching the first 30 seconds of it. Most of you probably haven't even gotten to this part of the video. However, if you have, you're the real MVP, you're the best. Give the video a like, share it with people who need to see this. Yes, there is good debt. I used to work at a bank in the middle market. We funded businesses that were in the millions of dollars of revenue per year. They all use debt for a reason, okay? It's because it helps their business scale. However, if you use it recklessly, just like anything else, if you want to use the hammer and nail example, you're not going to put up a window, using a hammer. You're going to use a different tool and you're going to use it responsibly. With all that being said, you guys, check out my free investing guide down in the description below. It's basically just a summary of a bunch of investments that if you're looking to get into investing, don't take out good debt, don't use a margin account, but check it out if you do have some side cash to invest. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a prosperous day.